it's literally true stories of the growing up of 5 Points and how it's changed, how it's been destroyed in parts and brought up in others, and community involvement and the people mostly building up this recipe, which is our show, of how things stick and connect and like meld together like food in a way.
Food is a spiritual thing. If you eat a really good meal, or if you know someone who cooks, that incorporates itself into your body and it changes you. So Theater Artibus took over the Savoy space about a year ago, and we have this immense privilege to have cultural space in Denver. And the Savoy itself is a really unique and historic little piece of Denver. Most people that walk up the stairs are like, wow, I didn't know this existed. It's like the hidden gem. It has a real feeling of history itself. And so it really lent itself to the idea that the first project that Artibus wanted to do in this space would be in response to the space as a character.
They say writing is thinking, and we were writing an Imagine 2020 grant through Denver Arts and Venues, and just thinking about we want to tell stories from this neighborhood and do some community-based work of high aesthetic value. When we were awarded the grant, we started putting together a plan for how we were collecting stories.
So before we decided what the content of the story, what the show would be, we wanted to get as much information as we could and then make decisions by being influenced by the material that's given to you, as opposed to trying to come in with a really strong idea yourself. This project has been so lovely because we've had so many different collaborators on the project as well, that the amount of different perspectives, the amount of different materials that came together, I think we started talking about them as like different ingredients. Like there were so many different ingredients that helped make this a meal, I think.
So we have sort of this larger meta narrative that we're telling, and then there are these smaller stories inside that. And each of those stories had their own journey of creation.
For this piece, we focused on stories about food, which I think was a great opportunity to show those points of connection between lots of different stories and lots of different people. And when we learned there had been a vanilla factory in here, it just really gave us another entree. Like vanilla is a foundational piece of a lot of recipes. And so we could really build on that. A different story about food, not necessarily about eating it, but about making it and making something that's essential to make the food taste better.
The Rodell piece is from Rebecca's perspective, and it just goes through her experiences in running the factory and being married to Pedro, who is her husband, and also the person who ran the Rodell Vanilla Laboratories with her for many, many years before he passed. And also we discover that she was the one who ran the business for 30 years until it was sold to another family. So it's a pretty interesting story of a strong woman and her enduring some heartache in her life, but also being resilient and having this really amazing legacy of this vanilla that is still sold today. You can buy at your local grocers.
This was a very interesting piece to create. Actually, for me, it was one of my first times being a part of a devising team, meaning you take work or people's stories and devise it into, a play. The Theater Artibus, Emancipation, and Grapefruit Labs, they had gone out and done some interviews with people in the community. And two older folks from the community who grew up here, who are now in their 80s, sat down with them at their home and spoke for 2.5 hours. We went in and took a chunk of that and brought it down to a 15-minute play where we have some movement and we also have the telling of their story, like who they are and what they recall about the neighborhood, what was good for them and what was bad for them, and what made it home.
And in the show, I play a character named Benjamin Lab. Benjamin Lab is a real person who used to rent space here in this place. He and his wife, they ran the grocery store. And I'm trying to portray this character who came here in the United States and Probably he had weird relationship with the neighbors. So he opened a grocery store, started gathering his community, and he started telling stories. And one of his stories, probably he tells the story because he wants the friendship.
My role in this production is Brother Jeff from Brother Jeff's Cultural Center and Cafe. And the title of my piece is called Fish, Fries, and Poetry. It's about Friday nights back in the 90s, early 2000s. Poets of color from the community used to come together and fellowship there in the open mic and share our poetry. And it was really a place where iron sharpened iron, and we tried to one-up each other every week and just get better and better. And the food was every bit as much a part of it as the word. And so it was just a really important developmental time for me and my artistry. And so it was really important for me to tell this story. Storytelling is important. Utilizing food as a catalyst to tie everyone together is equally important, because food, of course, is essential to everybody. And that's a great way to break down the barriers of cultures. Brother Jeff's Cultural Center and Cafe is an integral part of this growth and coming together and development of the relationship, because he is literally a catalyst for so much progress in the Black community specifically.
We all can enjoy each other's stories, and we can see ourselves in the American story and not necessarily just as a Black story, a white story, an Asian story, a Latin story, or indigenous story, a Korean story. We need to be able to see ourselves in all stories that affect tradition, home, heritage, togetherness, and even, diversity and separation. We need to be able to say we all have a shared background.
If we achieve this true connection, and it will move a couple people, then we can say that our mission is achieved, because then this connection happens. Then people's hearts synchronize, and we are getting more human. That's what we need. We need to be more human. I guess theater is that kind of old-time place where you still meet people.
Well, the key to learning one another's humanity is through storytelling. I believe that storytelling is the original classroom.
Being able to create a story that reflects back to its teller in a way that does it justice for them is really rewarding for me as a theater maker, and feels like that's a really important part of this show's process and product, is that if it can be both reflective to those that are told their stories or were in this neighborhood, and also be interesting to those that have just moved here or maybe don't know a lot about this neighborhood, if it can bring all of those kind of people together around a table for a moment, that seems to me like an important and necessary thing that art does in general, but especially for Recipe.
I was so excited to be involved with this project because I'm a writer, but I'm a theater maker. And so I don't like to go around and sit in my house and type things up. I like to be part of the process. And so working with Theater Artibus, who is a collaborative performance group, was a wonderful opportunity to pull together the writing, the acting, all the different parts of theater into this wonderful creation.
I just want to thank everyone who's been part of this project, from the person that built the Savoy in 1889 to all the people that were willing to tell their stories and trust us with those stories, and also just all of the collaborators from cast to different theater folks that came together to make a really beautiful piece of theater that I'm very proud of.